if you think about India, there is a very huge population. There is a fundamental problem of just resource scarcity. If we look at the doctors, the doctor to patient ratio is 1600 patients for one doctor. The WHO recommendation is one doctor for 1000 patients. There is so much diversity of cases and high volume of cases that doctors are looking at, but there is no information that is captured. It is written in pen and paper, given off to the patient, and it's just lost. There is no ability to look at the trend. And even today, 70 to 80% of the population still goes to government hospitals. If a doctor is looking at 30 to 50 patients a day, which is the caseload today in government hospitals in India, they do not have the time to even write, let alone type into a system. It takes about an hour to create discharge summary because the person who's manually creating it has to go through a lot of prior notes and test reports. The AI does this in 2 to 3 minutes. So essentially what we're trying to do is build AI systems to solve the resource problem.
Hello and welcome to ETI podcast. I'm your host Radhika, and together we will explore how AI is reshaping business and work. Today we have with us Ms. Anukriti Chaudhary, the co-founder of FosterHealth.ai, a platform that automates clinical notes and converts patient-filled medical forms into usable structured data for the hospitals, which helps hospitals save time and focus on their core area, that is patient care. Hi Anukriti, a very warm welcome to ETI podcast. Before we begin, Anukriti, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to start FosterHealth.ai? Was it a particular problem in the healthcare workflow that you wanted to address, or you had a larger vision about AI in healthcare that was the main motivation behind starting FosterHealth.ai?
Hey Radhika, hi. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. It's a pleasure to be here. Um, a little bit about myself. I am an IIT Bombay graduate. I did my chemical engineering back in 2016. Started off my career in management consulting like a lot of other folks, but quickly realized that my calling was somewhere else. I spent a very transformative 2 years at iSpirit Foundation. So this was the place. This was run by the folks who had designed Aadhaar and UPI, and were beginning to think of doing something in healthcare. And I essentially spent those 2 years understanding healthcare as a system, understanding how innovation happens. And I spent a lot of time on the ground. I also met like the who's who of healthcare, right? I met Nandan Nilekani, I met Dr. Devi Shetty, Kiran Mazumdar Shaw, Bill Gates, and that really taught me how to think of the big picture. That being said, you can't just think of the big picture, right? You've got to do something today. It's like there's this analogy of the island and the bridge. The vision is the island. You want to eventually get here, but you want to keep challenging. I'm sorry. You want to keep solving challenges step by step so that you eventually get to the bridge. That is essentially what I'm trying to do here at Foster. The inspiration is always the vision, but you've got to think of here and now, solve the challenge that is burning today, and slowly get to the vision.
So, Anukriti, that's I think that is incredible that you got to meet the who's and who of Indian, Indian AI, and you got to meet very lot of visionary founders, right? And understood the vision of how India should be shaping and be going ahead in this world. But now coming back to the healthcare, now all of us at some point of time have visited hospitals and I would have seen inefficiency in the healthcare system, which we want to get addressed, right? And as you mentioned, the island and bridge analogy that you gave, what are the 3 4 major gaps you found in the system, and then how did you prioritize to address any one or two of them? Obviously it must be depending up, you must have broken down your goals into short term, long term goals, and there are skill sets also. And you are, as you mentioned, you're not a medical professional, you are a techie. So how did you pick and choose, and what problems are you solving at FosterHealth.ai?
Right, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, if we think about the vision per se, the system overall, there is a fundamental problem of just resource scarcity, right? If we look at the doctors, the doctor to patient ratio is 1600 patients for one doctor. The WHO recommendation is one doctor for 1,000 patients. The US has one doctor for 200 patients. Um, the Indian healthcare is modeled on the UK healthcare system, which means that it is meant for the government healthcare system, the public health system to serve patients. And even today, 70 to 80% of the population still goes to government hospitals because private is just expensive. You can't afford so much out of pocket. And as a lot of us might know, the government healthcare system has there is 1,200 rupees per person. The infrastructure is not is trying to handle a lot more than what it has. So essentially, what we're trying to do is build AI systems to solve the resource problem. Now, here and now, what we try to do, and as you rightly said, it is a function of who we are, what is the burning problem, what skill set do we have, and as techies, I can't start with something that is super medical in nature. So we realized to get into the system, we'll solve a problem that is burning today, which is documentation. So we got in with the documentation administrative workflows because one, the technology is there. Two, we know how to use that technology. And three, using that, we get in and learn more. Now, specifically, that means we are trying to learn and capture data. So if you think about India, there is a very huge population. There is so much diversity of cases and high volume of cases that doctors are looking at, but there is no information that is captured. It is written in pen and paper, given off to the patient, and it's just lost. If I want to know today, know which cancer incidence is high versus low, which biopsy or cytology, which kind of diagnosis method should I use, there is no trend. There is no ability to look at the trend. So what we're doing is, if I walk into a hospital and I go see a doctor, the doctor can simply dictate. They can use voice, and voice is the game changer here because nobody has the time. If a doctor is looking at 30 to 50 patients a day, which is the caseload today in government hospitals in India, they do not have the time to even write, let alone type into a system. So our system allows them to dictate. If I'm seeing a patient, spending 5 minutes with the patient, I spend another 10 seconds dictating. Similarly, let's say somebody gets a procedure done or you're admitted for a day, there is a discharge summary that is given to you. It takes about an hour to create that discharge summary because the person who's manually creating it has to go through a lot of prior notes and test reports. The AI does this in 2 to 3 minutes. So that is significant value add right then and there. If somebody is trying to book a telemedicine appointment. So this is very common in cancer. Somebody who is diagnosed with cancer, you always want to go take a second opinion before deciding the next line of treatment. Now for this, you have to upload your reports. The doctor has to go through all of these. It takes about 10 to 12 minutes just to go through them. That is the time during which they can see another patient. Now AI over here just brings down those 12 minutes to say 1 to 2 minutes. That is efficiency improvement at each step while the AI is continuously learning about healthcare itself.
Understood. I think while AI in healthcare has many use cases, so I understood that you are solving the documentation use case, which itself is very huge. Now, can you explain how exactly your product works with a doctor, and do they have to put some recording device? How does it capture, and is it converting the verbal conversation into notes in real time? And does patient and doctor both have access to, do patients and doctor both have access to it at the same time? Can you explain the entire workflow? If I'm a hospital or a doctor, how does it work?
So it's a simple web application. It is also available on the mobile. We make it work in without any additional hardware. So it you can simply use your laptop, your computer, or your phone. Switch on the application, and as you're talking to the patient, it listens to the entire recording. Now, what we realized was doctors a lot of time want to say things that they're not comfortable speaking in front of the patient. You don't need to say lymph nodes are like this or abdomen is soft. Those are medical terms. So we let them aid these terms after the patient has left as well. We also let them upload reports, prior reports of the patient. So it is technical terms, it is a multimodal input. You can take in reports, you can take in voice, and you hit a generate button. It generates a very structured note. So if it is a prescription, it will just be a table with 2, 3 medications that are prescribed. If it is a discharge summary, it will have some history of your stay in the hospital, what is the advice, when should you come back to the hospital, and so on. So That is essentially how it works. In very busy settings, there might be a microphone required, but other than that, it works without any other hardware infrastructure.
Okay, so now, Anukriti, a lot of these conversations happen between doctor and patients happen in the regional languages, right? Not in English, and not even regional languages. They could be regional dialects, right? So if you go to UP, there's Bhojpuri, there's Awadhi, and a lot of languages. So I'm sure your model works with your product works with is applicable in such cases, right? Then in such a scenario, which LLMs did you use? Like most of our international LLMs might not be working very well with Hindi or local dialects, right? Are you using homegrown LLMs? And there's a lot of work that India AI mission under India AI mission that is happening here. So could you share a little bit about what LLMs you use?
So one thing is that it's easy to think about, conceptualize a product in the room and build it out. But when rubber hits the road, that is when you realize what is really needed, right? So one thing our realization was we built a product that could work with multiple languages and could record conversations. But when we actually gave it to doctors, we realized a lot of them were actually preferring to talk after the patient is left. Some conversation does get recorded with the patient and it does work with basic Indian languages, like the most spoken ones. And there are different accents in which doctors speak. So it seems like different Indian accents seem to be a higher priority than different Indian languages. That was our first learning. To your question on, and you're right, Western LLM that are trained on Western data do not work super well with Indian use cases, specifically patient names, drug names, which are very similar sounding to English language words. It invariably picks them wrong. Now, what we've done is one, we've used open source model because these open source models, one, are cost effective, which is very important in a country like ours, and second, they're very customizable. So we use them as the base, but then we customize them with the Indian data sets, so Indian patient names. And you're right, there is Bhashini, there is another initiative which is just starting out again with India AI, where they're trying to collate healthcare specific data sets around drug names and patient names. So these are the things that we're using to customize the LLMs. Over and above this, we've built options for the doctors themselves to kind of feed in vocabulary. So let's say gutka or pan or Jain as a surname is have very Indian nuanced terms and very commonly used here. The doctor can just correct them. You can think of them as your spell correct on your phone, right? When you buy a new phone, it doesn't work very well, but very quickly it's learning
Yeah, it learns.
pattern on way of writing. That is exactly how our AI works.
So you mentioned that doctors record this after the patient has left. So they speak to the patient and tell him or her some, some medical information, but it is in a non-medical language, right? And when the patient has left, they record it as their own notes.
That is correct. So if they want to say, I think the patient is still smoking, even though they're denying it, or that they are in very medical terms, in medical terms, you don't want to speak them in front of the patient. Especially in Indian government settings, is that these are shorter conversations. They're more about patient education and high ambient noise, lots of interruption. There is
Yeah.
recalling a resident comes in and asks a question. It's very interrupt driven. All of this
Yeah.
different from the Western world. There is merit in recording. I would say 20% of it still comes from what the patient say, especially about their symptoms, but 80% of it is spoken afterwards.
But isn't there additional work for the doctors or the staff?
You are absolutely right again over there. We have started with places that are already digitizing data or are seeing value in that, because later on there are use cases where they want to go do their research, or in especially chronic cases like diabetes, cancer,
And the patient visits the doctor repeatedly, right? That's where it is more sensible.
want to see a history, and they put in effort of this writing or employing somebody to type it out over there. Instead of doing all of that, they just have to spend 10 extra seconds.
So, are you also working on building some data sets for Indian healthcare system, or you guys are only working on the documentation part?
As I said, Radhika, there is an industry, it is actually being led by Gates Foundation, Koita Foundation. effort, and we are trying our level best to contribute in whatever manner we can. That is the case with all young startups. So as a young startup, I can contribute in terms of my learnings from the ground, but like a little data set we have. But I'm also relying on learning and getting things back from the ego.
Understood. So, Anukriti, a little bit about the team. How big is your team, and what are the biggest challenges you faced while building this product? And I'm talking about challenges both from a team or a business perspective, and then technical challenges also while you were building or customizing these models.
Our team is very small, Radhika, as is the case with any young startup. So I have two other co-founders. Both of them are also IIT and Stanford grads, and we have four people who are helping us out additionally. But that's about it. And even this has grown over the last 2 years. Um, what are the challenges that we faced? Technically, and these have been significant, but I still think there have been other challenges that have kind of overpowered. Technically, it has just been, as I mentioned, high ambient noise, interruptions, medical lingo, not having data sets, Indian dialects, Indian accents, really. Those have been technical challenges. Poor infrastructure. You assume that there will be
The
internet.
customization of models was not a technical challenge that you could
It
do
is,
easily.
yeah, I already brought that up. You're right. Customization models is a challenge. You having the right data set to customize the model is the challenge. Uh, in the absence of this, I am relying on whatever little data set I have, and I'm putting the onus on the doctor to kind of like correct it and over time train the model. But it would be really nice to have data sets that we can pre-train the model on.
Okay. And what about the business related challenges that you faced?
Radhika, it is healthcare, right? So everybody, rightly so, it is skeptical, and who's skeptical, they're just scared. So you have to make sure that it is safe, it is reliable, no mistakes should be allowed. I would say we've been lucky in some ways. We had Quota Foundation helping us out. We had Tata Memorial as a partner, and that really helped us learn a lot, be on the ground, co-develop with really good researchers and doctors out there. And it's been pilots and then slowly growing to different hospitals. I would say, honestly, more than business and technical, it's also regulatory. Evaluation frameworks, for example, are just non existent. So, how does a doctor evaluate whether AI model A is better than AI model B? To ensure there is data security, there is data safety. So, those standards are still evolving. There are some guidelines by ICMR, there is the DPDP Act, Digital Personal Data Protection Act, which it's still in draft stage, but it sort of gives us some inspiration and guidelines. But a lot of it really is self-reported and self-governed. That I would say has been a challenge.
Correct. So, as you mentioned, right, that AI in healthcare has very little tolerance for mistakes. People are very cautious when using it because, the patient's life is also involved in many cases, unlike, other places where we use AI. But what guardrails or fact checks do you have you implemented in your product? And post the delivery of the output, what metrics do you use to assess your product, and how do you continuously improve upon it?
Right. So yes, healthcare is a very sensitive area. It is not the only sensitive area. So we've borrowed some frameworks from, say, autonomous driving, from literally rocket science. And so we built fallbacks upon fallbacks. They typically have, system A failed, you have a system B fails, you have system C. So you make sure that the reliability of the system is very, very high. So in terms of technical architecture, that is what we've employed. In terms of explainability and making sure the system is transparent and correct, we have like citation systems, for example. So every single thing that is given as an output by the AI has a reference back to the original source. That way, the doctor is assured and they can review very quickly. It also makes sure that the AI does not hallucinate, because we put very strong guardrails telling the AI that it has to operate within these boundaries, making sure that the AI stays within boundaries. Transparency, explainability, I would say those have been the metrics. And apart from that, in terms of just the interface, we make sure that any potential mistake is also flagged very quickly so that the user can correct them or know that there is a potential mistake. In terms of terminology, for example, autonomous driving, again, has levels of autonomy that is defined. So L0 is a completely manual car. L5 is a completely autonomous car that does not need any human intervention. So they define these levels of autonomy from L0, L1, L2 to L5, and said today's self-driving cars are at L2 or L3 level. They will do the first draft, but they still require intervention from the human at certain times. They require oversight by the human. That is a framing that we've used to kind of tell our customer that they don't have to fully rely on the AI, but they really can use the AI for the first draft.
So I still, my question of metrics evaluating the output still stands. Like how, say for example, in a regular business, retention, engagement, P&L, those are very standard metrics that have evolved over a period of time. Even for a car driving, is the car going in the, you are at A and you want to go to B, is the car going in that direction using the shortest route? This is an easy metrics. Like, but in this particular case, the patient said something, doctor recorded something, something happened in the Chinese whisper, and the output is there, and then there are tons and tons of documents, right? You don't know whether the document output is correct or not. So how do you check it?
Right, right. Absolutely. So again, we work with doctors. We did a proper scientific study, almost like a clinical trial. It took us a year to do this, and we did this in collaboration with Tata Memorial again, where for over 300 patients in a real world setting, we showed that one, it is 100% hallucination free. There is absolutely nothing that is generated by the AI, which is number one concern. The second is what is the error rate by the AI? So even if it is not hallucinating, what if it got my accent incorrect? Now, of course, there
Hmm.
are some errors, but they have to be within a certain limit. And if you compare it to manually generated or handwritten notes, it has to be significantly better. So we showed that the AI generated notes have a 45% error rate reduction. In addition to that, it has to add value. So we showed that the documentation time goes down by 79% instead of 6 minutes, which is what it takes to write and type the note. The AI takes 1.2 minutes. And lastly, we had a subjective scoring where even though, mathematically all of these things might make sense, but the ultimate note, if it is not making adding value to the doctor, they're looking at it and they're still feeling it is not familiar or not relatable, they might not use it. So we had them assess it subjectively, and over 300 notes, they rated it at 9.1 out of 10. And now these results have been accepted by the European Society of Medical Oncology, which is another scientific forum, and that sort of adds confidence to all the metrics that we're giving. And we are planning to present them later in November in a conference over there.
Okay, understood. No, that's very helpful information for anybody who's listening to this conversation. So I visited your website and some of the regulatory and governance frameworks that you adhere to. You mentioned you adhere to HIPAA, and I'm sure there are many. You mentioned DPDP. There are many regulatory frameworks, not specifically for healthcare, but in India they are used. So what are the governance and regulatory frameworks your product adheres to? And was it the first requirement when you went and pitched your product to the hospitals? Was it the first requirement from them, and how did you go about that process?
Right. There are three dimensions. If we step back a little and try and understand the spirit of the regulation, there are three dimensions in which on which they focus. One is data sovereignty, which means that if it is an Indian patient's data, it should stay within Indian geography. That is data sovereignty. Then there is data security, that if I am dealing with any kind of sensitive personal data, it should not get leaked. It has to be stored in a manner that is at par with industrial standards. And the third is data privacy, which is to make sure that if I'm dealing with personal data, I do not use it for anything that is not meant to be used for. So the DPDP framework that I mentioned is around privacy. Similarly, there is security. So we adhere to HIPAA, DPDP. We make sure we're following best practices in the industry, even if they're not dictated by any regulatory framework. We store all the data in Indian geography. So those are things that we do. to make sure that we are at least in spirit with all the laws, and definitely adhere to the ones that are already in place. The reason I explain the spirit in addition to the laws is because, as I mentioned, this is an evolving field.
So, Anukriti, you mentioned that when you started building, you had US market in mind, and then the drugs, the name of the drugs and dialects and all are different in India. So, two questions with respect to that. What is the main difference you found in Indian market versus US market, and which is your primary market today? Is it India or is it US, or you can, your product is applicable to any country in the world?
Right. Look, traditional wisdom always points you to the US market because it is overall a very big market. The budget is very high. That being said, we started off in India because one, we're familiar with the system here. Second, the range and the diversity of things that you see here are a lot wider than what you do in the US. So as of today, my primary market is India. We are doing a lot of work in India. Our learnings are from here. And to your point, what is the difference between India and the US? In terms of implementation and incentives, of course, the two markets are very different. As I mentioned, the infrastructure challenges, nature of doctor patient conversations, of course, are different in India as compared to the US. The US is, a lot more focused on privacy. There are 30 to 40-minute long conversations between the doctor patient, no interruptions. So it's much easier from a technical complexity perspective. Um, However, in terms of the core use case and the need, there are a lot of similarities. We make discharge summaries, they make discharge summaries. It is a cancer here, it is cancer there. There are procedure notes, there are teleconsults that happen in India, there are teleconsults that happen in the US. So, in terms of the use case and the core documentation requirement, the two work very similarly. Our goal right now is to, just keep going deep, address these research kind of use cases, really build a very mature product out of India, and then take it global. Build in India, but for the world. That is the goal for the startup.
Interesting. So, what is your business model and how big is the size of the use case that you're solving in India or even globally, if you want to talk about it? How big is the use case?
It is, if I just talk about the market size, it is huge, but let me break it down. Let's say
Yeah.
we just do research. So, right now, we're just funding ourselves through multiple research grants that we're getting. We're working with clinicians, building new use cases of the same AI technology. We started with OPD, then took it to tumor board and discharge and teleconsult. Now we're taking it to frontline workers where, they can, if an Anganwadi worker or a nurse is talking to the patient, there is a lot that you can derive from that conversation. So we are expanding to different use cases through grants. That is the model right now. If you just look at ICMR, they have about 4,000 crores allocated just for research every year. And this is just one governing body. So the research market itself is huge, and it funds the first leg of the business. Post that, once we have a fully baked product that is solving, it is not just solving, but it is mature and polished and addressing one specific niche and can be scaled, then the market is really huge. If you just look at administrative workflows in the US, it is valued at $300 billion. Uh,
Okay.
uh,
Healthcare administrative.
right, that's correct. So the market is huge. We are, talking to NHS. They have come up with a new 10-year plan. They're looking for new solutions. So there is the whole UK Europe market. You can just take it as far as you can imagine, really. And then
But in India, you don't have a data for Indian administrative healthcare market at this point of time?
India, Radhika, is very different because there are no legacy systems. It is greenfield. We are starting from scratch. So it's saying, where will UPI go without even knowing what UPI is. So
Hmm.
now once we have this system, who knows how many doctors will want to just digitize. There is no real incentive except for the fact that people have genuinely started believing in digital systems and want to move to digital. The good thing is that there is no legacy over here, and given today's day and age versus what we were 10 years back, the behavior of doctors is very different. So in terms of volume, we're a very big population. Even if you look
Yeah, yeah.
and high volume, low cost, it can be a very big market. But how do I really estimate it? I really don't.
Okay.
Don't
So
even.
you are funded by grants at this stage, and then you must be working with the government programs and government hospitals, right? Not with the private healthcare systems in India or bodies in India.
No, that is correct. We specifically focused on government hospitals because they are challenging 80% population, high caseload, etc. And do they have the experimental budget to play around and fund innovation in AI?
Okay, so is the just a, I mean, since you are in this field, is the VC community interested in funding these kind of initiatives, or they are completely at the research level currently?
I really wouldn't be the right person to comment on that. My sense would be that the VC community wants you to go explore Western markets. I do not know of a lot of believers of the Indian market. That being said, I haven't also been super focused on the VC market per se.
Okay, okay. No, that's very interesting, but that you want to solve a problem, but maybe it is not generating the sort of revenue, etc., that
A
a lot
very
of.
deep technical product. And the market in India funds things that it can scale. So you have Swiggy and Zomato that can really scale. But if you're doing something that is deep tech, deep IP related products, the VC mindset doesn't really fund that. And if you're doing like AI based diagnoses, AI based critical care management, those are deep tech products that have gestation periods of 2 to 3 years, and that too hard to fund through a VC money. The day you can show that you can scale 10x, that is when you go hit a VC.
So again, you mentioned about scale. So what is your GTM strategy, or are you at research phase right now? How do you plan to scale in future?
Look, our partnership is already with the National Cancer Grid, which is 300 hospitals, all primary hospitals, cancer hospitals in the country. So, in addition to that, we are going to other bigger hospitals as well. We've started talking to private ones as well, but I don't think we really want to first focus on getting the first niche right before going to the private ones. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy with 300 hospitals initially.
Okay, okay. So who are your biggest competitors in this space, and how do you see this space, entire space evolving in next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, Radhika, I thought about this, and we talk about this for different markets as well. Even in the US, where ambient scribing, which is the category in which our product falls, is a very hot market. But it is only 10% that has adopted. So even though it is just taking off, most of the market is still greenfield, and so there is 90%. You can just go deep into oncology, go deep into acute care, go deep into veterinary care, and really build out a niche. That is the US. Similarly, in India, just digitization itself is very low. So I would say we are still in a very greenfield phase where we're not even thinking about competition. The entire market is yours. It's about how quickly you can move and capture which segment of the market.
And you are not focusing on any particular segments like oncologies, diabetes, etc. You're focusing on documentation at the first step, right?
That is, I mean, we started with oncology, but now we're being specialty agnostic, but still focused on public health because you get a lot of users, you learn a lot over there, you can go deep. And once we have the user base, once we have a mature product, that is when we start going broader in terms of market segment. But we're not, to your point, we're not focused on one specialty per se.
So, Anukriti, your work is at the intersection of medicine and technology. And I'm sure a lot of people are with AI evolving and becoming an integral part of our lives and education. Both students of medical science as well as technology are looking at solving some of these use cases that you mentioned, right? So, what is your advice for our young listeners in both medicine and technology field who want to work in this space, and which is continuously evolving while it is a greenfield area? How should they prepare themselves, and what are the gaps they should address in next 3 to 5 years?
Um, I'm not a doctor myself, but with that caveat, I would say one, we absolutely love working with doctors who are, forward thinkers, or who love tinkering with technology, because it is impossible for me to build a good product without having a clinical partner on board. And similarly, I would want to believe it is similar over there, where they bring in clinical expertise but look for techies to work with. So folks who are super interested in the field, I would say just find people, techies, and collaborate with them. Irrespective, even if you don't want to work on AI per se, um, we see doctors being, sometimes being scared of, oh, AI is going to take away my job. I think it is nowhere around that. It is more about AI just improving your productivity, taking off rote manual tasks off your plate so that you can really focus on just giving better care and doing better research. My advice, therefore, would be to, adopt it instead of resisting it. Doctor plus AI is greater than doctor alone.
So this was the advice for medical students. What about the tech students? Because medical plus AI as a field is evolving very quickly, and there are plenty of use cases to be addressed. Documentation is one case which you're doing in India. So how should they gear up, and what all should they learn? Because obviously, next 2 to 3 years down the line, they would be more prepared, and there would be more and more people doing similar kind of work that you are doing, or more solving more use cases.
Radhika, for techies, it is more about picking a field. So even just AI in general, if you look at it, there are generalized models which are gotten to certain level, and then everybody is trying to specialize into certain verticals. So if somebody wants to is already passionate about AI but wants to get into healthcare, one is just picking one field and going deep into it, and then two, I would suggest have a clinical partner and understand what are their pain points. So anytime a techie comes in, and that is why there is this joke about techies and doctors don't, it's hard for them to work together, or doctors aren't very tech savvy. That I don't think that is true at all. Doctors use much more advanced machinery than any of us do. Whether it is an MRI machine or robotic surgery, they are very tech savvy. The thing is that I think it's more about collaboration and mindset. If you go work with doctors, understand their pain points, start with solving that, it is going to be, a really great journey going forward.
No, that's very helpful. I think our young listeners would find some of these information pieces that you shared very helpful. Thanks, Anukriti. This was a very interesting conversation, and I think you're solving a very big problem. AI, while has multiple usage, healthcare system in India and I'm sure elsewhere requires a lot of attention from the young, both people from technical space as well as medical space. And as you rightly said, that they need to collaborate and work together to produce the desired output. Thank you, Anukriti. Thank you so much for joining us. And with this, we wrap up our conversation. Stay tuned with us to learn about more about the business of AI and how AI is impacting business and work. Until then, bye. Have a nice day.